What's up, guys? David DeSalle here, your host of the Business with the Boys podcast, as always, joined with my good friend and co-host, Landon Troyer. And we are coming off just about, a day ago, an episode with a good friend of ours, Taylor Stormberg. I actually had the pleasure of meeting him in person when I was out in Omaha, and you've known him for some time, but yeah, super good dude.
Oh, salt of the earth. Yeah, guy just oozes talent and about every aspect. So yeah, and he's just a badass guy, just guy's guy, right?
For
Athlete,
sure.
golfer, college hooper, Division I college hooper talent. I mean, it's like, man, save some for the rest of us, bro.
I will say too, if you're a business owner and the business employs more than just you, this is an episode that you're definitely going to want to tune into and listen to, because Taylor's story is not only inspirational, but his business is very, very relevant to most everyone listening to this show. And I think he could help you greatly with, frankly, the areas of your business that you don't want to freaking
Deal
take care
with.
of anyways. Deal with, yeah.
Yeah,
And
and I can speak
it,
from experience because we work with them and they're awesome and they take care of all the bullshit from the HR to payroll to benefit. It's just, yeah. Thank God for Stormy, as I call him, and his team.
yeah, he's a good dude. And even things like, he worked for he worked for Under Armour, got to sort of experience that rise. He started his business when his wife was 4, 5, 6 months pregnant, something like that. Ended up raising $2.5 million after getting a bunch of no's along the way, and then ultimately, you know, the most recent funding I think he said was like
28 and a
28.
half mil.
Yeah, 28.5 million. So I'll properly introduce him before we dive in, but just know this is certainly an episode that you're going to want to tune into. So Taylor Stormberg is the co-founder and managing partner at Pando PEO. He graduated from Creighton University in 2013 with degrees in finance and accounting. I was going to do the same, and I took my first accounting class, and I was like, man, fuck this. I'm taking finance. So respect. And he did that while playing basketball for the Jays. After graduation, he began his professional career at Under Armour as a financial analyst for a brand in sports marketing. And he moved out to Baltimore, Maryland for that opportunity. After 3 years with the fastest growing company in the US, he moved back home where he entered into the nonprofit space, and he spearheaded a $30 million capital campaign for Creighton Prep School, his high school that he went to. And since then, he's built a pretty badass business, serving over 200 companies, 3,500 employees in just 18 months, raised 28, well, I guess technically over 30 million when you compare the most recent raise and the initial raise. So this is definitely an episode you're not going to want to miss. Let's dive in and talk to Taylor.
Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believe me. Yeah, I would never duck the ball and know I'm making the easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say, I got them picking up the pieces. Go ahead, on. That me here running clear with you like I'm about to come and run it all back.
Well, Taylor, I'm glad we finally made this happen. I think, first of all, thank you to Wade for initially introducing us way back when. I want to say, October, September, something like that. So it's been a while, and we had an opportunity to actually meet in person when I was in Nebraska last, and we've been talking about the podcast for a while, but here we are. Look at us. We finally followed through, the three of us.
Finally
So
made
it's
it.
nice to have you.
Hey, great to be here, fellas. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation today.
Love it. Well, before we dive into your background, your business, and all that fun stuff, you were just sharing a kind of ironic story. So we were talking about the tornadoes in Nebraska. Walk us through that day, because you had a special guest that ended up showing up. Walk us through that
Shitty
day.
circumstances, kind of a badass outcome, though.
Yeah, no, really cool. And yeah, I think Landon and I were talking, and there's obviously devastation that came with the tornadoes and out in his area, Gretna and Elkhorn, and kind of carried through Iowa. But there was a storm cell that was running through right downtown in Omaha, Midtown, and that's where our office is located. And we have fortunate enough to have a pretty nice little golf simulator down in the basement. So we had a few prospects that were in town, and instead of actually going out and playing golf, we decided to take everybody and host them down in the simulator in the basement of our 18-story building. So we had been playing for, 2 hours down there, and things are getting pretty serious, and everyone's starting to shelter down in the basement. Get a knock on the door, group of people say, hey, there's some couches in there. Is it okay if we come and sit down? Absolutely, come on in. Everyone's kind of getting freaked out. They're starting to worry about what's going on. And so a couple ladies walk in, and then there's this big guy walks in, 6'5", 6'6", 270 pounds, just chiseled. Like, what is this guy doing?
And is that the tornado?
Where's he gonna sit?
Yeah, exactly. And he holds the door open, and we see a cane start to approach the doorway and a red sweater. And the next thing you know, we look up, and Warren Buffett had decided to bunker with us down in the golf simulator. So, he walks in and immediately starts making fun of my golf swing as I hit 3 fairways to the right. But it was really cool. Obviously, again, given the circumstances, but we spent about an hour with him just kind of sharing stories and hitting some golf balls, and he's trying to keep everybody relaxed by cracking jokes. And it was really cool to see that. And it was just the week before their annual shareholder meeting here in Omaha for Berkshire. And so just hey, Landon, you said this, but unfortunate circumstances, but a really cool way to spend trying to shelter from a tornado, and obviously.
And you always hear that about Warren, right? Like, he's just as down to earth as they come. So it's cool to have somebody that close friends with that can vouch for that. And
exactly right. Yeah, it was fun. We had a couple guys from out of town in the private equity and venture capital space, and their first time here, and so they're down there with us. And one, they've never been through a tornado before, so they're kind of scared. Like, is this actually happening? What's going on? Are we safe? And then they keep doing the double take. Like, is that who I think it is? We're like, yes, that is Mr. Buffett, right?
That's the Oracle of Omaha.
It is. He's just a normal person if you don't look at his bank account. So it was really fun, and just kind of we talked a little bit of business with him too, and so. Just to hear it from somebody who's been doing it so well for so long was just
should have booted the private equity out of the room and just asked him if Berkshire was interested in taking some ownership, and away we go, right?
Well, we don't have any. Nope. We're not giving away ownership, Landon. I don't care who it
is. Well, was that the first time you had met Warren Buffett?
That was not the first time, actually. The first time was I played basketball for Creighton here in town, and he's not a big sports guy, but he loves face paint. So he came to one of our games, and after the game, he comes in. He's got the balloons, he's got the Creighton Jays all over his face, and kind of gave us a post-game speech, which was really cool. So we got to spend some time with him when I was in college. And then a couple of our teammates here at Pando have had the opportunity to ride the elevator with him, since he has the top 2 floors in our building.
Sick. I was wondering why he was in your building, so that makes sense. So you're in the same office building. Yeah. His personal office.
He still goes to the office, man. Why not?
Oh, exactly right. He's got to stop at McDonald's first, but
and get his Coke. Yep.
Exactly right. Get his 2 sandwiches, and then his day gets rolling.
I remember reading something or seeing something. I don't know if it's true, but depending on if the market's up or down from the day before, determines if he gets bacon on his breakfast sandwich or not, to save the money if the market's down. I don't know if it's true, but I'd like to believe it to be true.
Oh yeah. I mean, the house I grew up in was probably 5-6 blocks away from his. Just on the other side of Dodge, and it's like Yeah, you drive past it and you wouldn't suspect anything. Someone of that caliber living in his house.
Wild. Well, let's enough about Warren. Let's talk about you, dude.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
Great pivot. Great pivot. Yeah.
Oh man. So we're gonna get into your backstory, but just to help set the stage. So most everyone that listens to the podcast, and certainly that's been on the podcast, is in business, right? They own their own business, or some of the folks listening, maybe they're soon to launch their business. And your business that you've co-founded, that you're a managing partner of, is something that I think is relevant to most everyone that tunes into the show. So let's first start off and share what you do. Pando PEO. I remember when we first met, and forgive my previous ignorance, but I was like, what's a PEO? Like, I don't get that. I haven't come across that term before. So help us understand what it is you actually do and what types of folks you help.
Yeah, absolutely. So PEO stands for Professional Employer Organization. So it's really centered around four main things. The first one is payroll, the processing of that for our clients and their employees. And that can be anything from garnishments of wages to taxes on Medicare to Social Security, all of their federal unemployment, state unemployment, all of that on the payroll side. And then we have economies of scale play that we utilize in our industry by grouping all of those individual clients across different verticals under one umbrella to provide a pretty significant discount for benefits. So major medical, dental, vision, long-term, short-term, critical illness, accident, life insurance, all of those are pooled together, very much like 401k is as well. So that's the second piece. Third one is kind of a risk management and work comp. So we provide safety instructions, manuals, trainings, but then also provide work comp insurance. And again, we're able to aggregate all of those smaller groups together to allow for some better buying power. And then the last is an HR or human resource component, which is a nebulous term. It could mean recruiting, but could mean attracting and retaining employees. It could mean culture and atmosphere of your business. But we really help with the compliance side. So if you're looking to potentially fire someone, right, or if you're looking to hire someone, what are the proper protocols and steps that need to be taken? And then while they are an employee, like how do we manage these people? And so, what we've built on the tech side allows for a 360-degree workflow of the employee lifecycle. But then you also have a service team that's there. We've got 3 SHRM certified folks on staff that all help with various situations that pop up on a day-to-day basis.
And get to also, I want you to share sort of the punchline. And what I mean by that is all that stuff resonated with me when we were first talking way back last fall. But then you had shared, hey, on average, we're able to save X amount per employee per month. And that's when I was like, oh, shit, that's a lot of money that you're able to save. So I know every situation's different and there's nuances and all that type of stuff, but generally speaking, kind of get to that punchline. Like, what are you actually able to save folks in real dollars on average?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a hard cost on the HR side for every business. The SHRM, which is Society of Human Resource Managers, they actually calculate that at close to about $2,000 per employee per year. So when we come in, we take that off of the employer's plate, and then we charge our admin fee, which can be anywhere from $650 to $1,200 per employee per year. So there's a hard cost on that side. And then there's a hard cost on the benefits saving side, right? So we're talking, somewhere between 15 to 40% on major medical premiums alone. So most groups that are under 50 employees have to abide by, the small group health plans. So if they're offering something, everything is age rated and it's all based on the employees themselves and their health and their history. we're able to kind of bypass that and get us a more collective pool, which helps us drive down those major medical cost premiums. So we're seeing, $100 to $500 savings on employee only plans on a monthly basis, and anywhere from, I'd say $600-700 to $1,200 on the, employee spouse or dependent and family coverages. And again, it's all on a monthly basis. So there's a pretty good and a pretty significant actual hard cost savings when it comes to providing benefits for your employees.
Well, what I like about that too is, as I think through, some of the work we do with helping business owners beef up their valuation in anticipation of a potential exit, it's not just saving, say, a few $100 a month by, per 10 employees per month. So $3,000 a month, 36 grand a year. That's nice too. But it's more so that 36 grand times whatever multiple they get upon exit. So if it's a 5x multiple, you're looking at 150, 60, 70 grand, whatever that math is, that they're quote unquote saving through an eventual sale. So it's a big impact that you're able to have.
Absolutely. When we forecast this out, we go through the major medical piece specifically. We do a 5-year runway. So we take an average of small group renewals, which can be anywhere from 10% to 12% on an annual basis. And that's a pretty good renewal for a small group. It's a double-digit increase.
Unfortunately, it is.
Yeah, exactly right. So, and we come in and, our renewal is somewhere between, 2 to 5%. So now we're not just saving you money in that first year, but over the lifespan of those employees, and especially for groups that are trying to grow, right? You add, you go from 25 employees to 50 employees, in 18 to 24 months. Heck, you're not doubling the cost of your health insurance anymore.
That's a big deal. And I wanted to start with that because some of the folks we've had on, they own businesses that are, B2C or not necessarily relevant to, the general business owner that is listening or has been on the podcast. But because what you do is so relevant, I wanted to just start with that to kind of hook those people in. But let's go back in time. And what was, you grew up in Nebraska? What was kind of life like looking back that far?
Yeah, grew up, born and raised in Omaha. My dad was the youngest of 10 kids, so big, like Roman. I know, big.
That was
Roman.
the size of that's bigger than Landon's class that he went to school with.
Yeah, yeah, it was. No, so a big Irish Catholic family, and so they, we have 8 uncles, two aunts, there's 7 uncles and 2 aunts. And so just grew up in that Omaha world. Went to school here, ended up going to Creighton University, studying finance and accounting, majored in both of those. Knew I didn't want to be a CPA and go work for a Big 4 firm. And that's kind of where the entrepreneurship itch started to happen when I was in college. It's like, okay, I don't necessarily like this, but I know that someday I'm going to own my own business and I'm going to need to know this really well. So after college, I went out to Baltimore and Washington, D.C., and I worked for Under Armour out there while it was one of 2 companies to hit top line revenue growth or 20% or more. And I want to say it was like 32 consecutive quarters. It was insane. So when I started there, we were a $2 billion revenue company, and when I left, we were at $6 billion.
That was all because of you, right? That
$6. If you look at the stock price, David, it's directly correlated with my entry and my exit. No, I worked on the finance and strategy side, specifically for their brand and sports marketing teams. So I was responsible for about an $800 million marketing spend across, I want to say it was like 24, 25 different sport categories. So it was just a ton of moving parts, and especially with a company that was growing that quickly, it was just incredibly difficult to manage that. But it was an amazing experience. Average age was 25, 26, a ton of former athletes. And so we all worked really hard to build something that had a brand that was just on fire.
I didn't even know there was 24 or 25 sports, so that's
Oh,
impressive.
yeah, exactly right. We're talking like
Cricket.
I was
hunts.
gonna
No,
say
like
now there's 26 with pickleball on the
yeah, big.
rise.
Damn right. Damn right.
Yeah, no, it was good. I think my last year there, we had the MVP in every major sport category. So across football, baseball,
Really?
basketball. Yeah, it was really cool. So it was an awesome time to be there and to watch that company grow. And it was actually the only place I applied to when I was in college. So my senior year of college, like I said, I knew I didn't want to be a CPA, so I made a list of all the awesome companies that were across the country and just started doing my research. And Under Armour just kept staying at the top of the list. Like I just never crossed it off. And so I decided that one day I was going to just send an email to the CEO and you say, hey, I don't want a job. I don't want to interview. I just want 5 minutes of your time for why I think I'd be an awesome person to work at your company. Got a response a week later from him. He said, hey, I don't have time to talk to you, but here's my chief of staff. Talked to the chief of staff for about an hour and a half. And at the end of that meeting, I just said, who else can I talk to? And I just started networking my way inside of the organization, not knowing a single person. I just told the story this morning. The day before I graduated in May of 2013, they flew me out to Baltimore. I had 8 interviews in 8 hours, got the job at the end of the day, flew back that night, graduated the next morning, and I was out there 2 weeks later.
Damn.
Let's hang out there for a bit. That's it.
Yeah.
It was, I mean, and I tell this to a lot of college kids at Creighton that I try to mentor, and it's just, if you don't shoot your shot, you're never going to know, right? And the thing that I said to myself is like, the fear of rejection stops a lot of people, especially young people. And it's like, well, if he's not going to respond to my email, then I don't want to work there, right? And it's not a cocky statement. It's just well, hey, like I think I'm good enough to be in your organization, but I want to prove that to you. So, I scoured the internet for every single Kevin Plank email that I could find, and I sent it to all of them. And so, luckily, I found the right one and was able to kind of, like I said, just network my way inside of an organization that I knew I wanted to be a part of.
Yeah, I've always thought the same thing, right? Like everybody, I was fortunate to have some success in the financial services young or early on in the career, and people were always, other colleagues were, kind of like, well, how are you getting into X, Y, and Z business, or how are you able to talk to that individual? And I was like, I don't give a fuck. Like, what's the worst they can do is say no? Yeah. Like, don't take a meeting with me? Who gives a shit? Yeah. Right? I'm in the same spot I started. So I've got nothing but upside. There's no downside risk other than hearing no. And again, those are feelings that I don't do feelings all that much. So it's like, let's just go. Right. So that's good on you.
Yeah. No, it was really interesting because, all of my friends are getting jobs at, KPMG and Deloitte and Chicago and New York and LA and all these awesome places. And I was just sitting there like,
I'm going to the hood in Baltimore.
I'm going to Baltimore, man. Like, you ever seen The Wire? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to live there, but
be in the towers.
No, it was, it was an amazing experience. I spent about three and a half years there. Kind of doing two different roles, but it was just awesome to learn, and see like, even a publicly traded company, like they don't have their stuff together. Like they're still trying to figure it out. They're trying to play catch up, and you could kind of see, and again, after I left, David, thank you for bringing this up. Right, there was a ton of supply chain issues. It had grown so fast, right, and trying to open up international markets when they're 95% of their presence was in the U.S. And so to be able to disperse all of that product from a retail store or brand house or e-commerce, like trying to get all or wholesale. Like while I was there, Sports Authority went bankrupt, right, and that was our biggest wholesaler at the time. And so It's just like there was, 500 plus $1 million of revenue just out the door overnight. And so it was fascinating to watch that on a macro scale, with a company that was doing billions of dollars a year.
I can imagine the quality control, like
Cool.
responsibility to have
Yeah.
a company that's scaling that fast.
Yeah.
And like, how the
And
hell
it's run
do you-
by a bunch of 26-year-olds, he was saying.
Yeah, who can't even take care of themselves. They live in shitty apartments that are probably disgusting, right? Like crazy.
Oh man, that's a great point. Yeah, but it was also fascinating to see because now running my own company is the energy and the passion that comes from the founder, right? So on a quarterly basis, they called them town halls, and it didn't matter what size we were. He came and he told the story again, right? And it was just like you continue to ingrain that, and it's just like you become programmed to think that way, and you're just like, yeah, but I'll go run through a wall. Like it does not matter like if I'm working 14 hours a day. Like I want to be a part of something that's bigger than myself. And it was yeah. I mean, I couldn't say enough good things about it.
Speaking of guys that shoot their shot, that if I remember right, I think the founder's got a pretty badass story, right? Like
Yeah.
he was a college student at the University of Maryland, right?
Yeah, he was. So he was a
Basically
football.
got shit on by everybody, and
Yep.
then the last guy took a shot on him and then blew up, right?
Yep. So he was a walk-on on the football team for Maryland, and he was like doing everything he could to just scrape by. Like he told this story that, like the day before Valentine's Day, he went and bought 10,000 roses and sold them on campus, and that was his first like try at like being
Entrepreneur.
running a business, right? And
Yeah.
so he did that for 4 years, and while he was playing football, during the summer they're doing training camps and tour days, and it's just like you guys all remember wearing the like 10-pound cotton T-shirt, right? And it was just like there has to be something that's better than this, and so he kind of set out on a journey to go create that. And I mean, it was wild to hear. He's like, I took out loans from every family member that would say yes. I maxed out every credit card that I could possibly get. And he told his story. He went across the Bay Bridge to go pick up his product, his first batch of product that he was going to go sell. And on his way back, he had no money. He ran out of gas on the bridge. When he got to the toll station, right, he didn't have $1 to pay the toll. Like, and he was like, I broke down crying, like my whole dream is over. Like, I don't know what to do. It just found a way and ended up going down to Georgia Tech because he knew the athletic trainer down there, and gave away his product to the football team for free. Right. And all the guys were like, this is the best thing I've ever worn. Like, it takes the sweat out, whisk it away. I stayed cool. Like, how can we get more? And so it went back and found.
Well, if you give me some money, I could figure out how to get you some more.
Exactly right. Yeah. So that was like his first. That was his first college sponsorship. Was Georgia Tech, which is just, but amazing story. Like, we started it in his grandma's basement in D.C., right in between D.C. and Baltimore, and like literally just was down there for 20 hours a day, just like hand sewing these pieces together to try to create something that would actually work. So that's still like I said, I could tell that story because I just resonate. Like I remember every single detail of that, and so it's ultimately what you have to do when you run your own company. Is you got to be able and willing to do anything that you have to.
Well, that, and one of my takeaways, and I have a question just out of curiosity about that before we move past the Under Armour phase of your life, but there's a good lesson in there in that you can regurgitate that because it's shared so many times. And oftentimes I come across folks, business owners, who they're like, I told them this and they're not doing it, or they're not aligning with our company's, mission or values or vision. And it's like, well, when did you share it with them? Well, last year at our company kickoff meeting. Okay. When have you brought it up since? oh, well,
It's on the wall.
I have it, you know? It's that like constant communication. It may sound redundant to you, but if you're dynamic in your delivery, it's feels like the first time you heard it every time you heard it. And like you said, I bet you there were times you said those town halls were quarterly.
Mhm.
Like I'd imagine right around week 10 of the quarter or so, like people start feeling a little burnt out, a little tired.
Yep.
And then boom, 2 weeks later, it comes in with fire, right?
Yep.
Every quarter. And then you're ready to keep running. So that it's like methodical, increasing the cadence of in this case, communicating that story. But I think that translates well into uh, communicating what the culture of a particular company is, the mission, the vision, the values, and just over communicate the heck out of that if you want people to be able to regurgitate that.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And we try to do a lot of that, right? You build a company based on your past experience, right? Mm-hmm. And so like a lot of that like just still lives with me. So that's what we do, right? It's like we hire and fire based on our core values, right? And that's it. Like those, if you don't meet those three principles, like then you're not part of this organization. Every single meeting, we start with the like vision. Like, what is the vision for what this meeting is for, right? Like, what is the why we're doing this? Because then it sets the tone for the next 45 minutes, hour and a half. Because otherwise, you go through your day, and I know you guys know this, but I mean, I have 10 to 12 meetings every single day, and it's just like, well, what are we doing? Like, why are we actually here? And so, a lot of that still stands for me. Like he had showed us pictures. Kevin Plank showed us pictures of, his whiteboard, right? And he would just have these certain things on his board every single time and just write around it. And eventually, once we built the company to where it was, his entire office was a whiteboard, like the whole thing. And right, and it was just his vision statement, like what he wanted to create, like all of that. And then next idea, all of it started right there. And he would see it every day. His team would see it as they started walking in, and like, people got to a point, it's like, yeah, I was, employee number 10, right? Like they know exactly what employee number they were, because it meant so much to them. And they're like, yeah, I remember sitting, on a cardboard box that were our office chairs, and like that was like was seeing him write down like like the warm fit, right? Like keeping that, like now that was it, right? It was all cool stuff and making sure everyone was staying cool during the summer, and then it pivoted to like, okay, well, how do we keep people warm now when it's cold outside?
And then how we keep them camouflaged for hunting.
Exactly.
That blew them up, right?
Yeah.
Like the hunting market was freaking insane.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. So, but I tried to take a lot of that and the experience I had there for, the first couple of years of my professional career. I try to take that and make sure I take the good pieces of it, and you try to implement that into what you're building.
Are you familiar with Patrick Bet-David?
No, I'm not.
He's he had sold his insurance company for, I want to say $250 million, and he got into starting a media company. He has a podcast called the PBD podcast. But anyways, he recently came out with a book called Choose Your Enemies Wisely. So I'm curious, before we move past the Under Armour days, did you guys like in the office have like Nike up there or Adidas up there being like, yo, let's go take them down, as like, again, choose your enemies wisely? Or was it, hey, we're in our own lane, we're focused on our own thing, we're not even paying attention to them? Like, how did you
I feel like with a bunch of former athletes in the fucking room, you're going to have like that shit everywhere.
Yes. To answer your question, I mean, one of the things that was on Kevin Plank's wall was take down Nike, right? Like that was it. I mean, Nike owned, 70% of the market share, right? And you look at Adidas is a massive company, but they're mostly international. Like you don't realize how big their international presence was. Puma was another big one that started coming up when we did. New Balance has, right? And so you try to like, you have product around that's not Under Armour, right? So you can be reminded of like, we're going to go build and create something that's better than this. Yeah, people like it's crazy to think about, but it's like Nike's marketing budget at the time when I was there, is 2013, 20 to 2017 was their marketing budget was our top line revenue.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So, right, and but you kept wanting to like move the needle, right? Like you kept
keep
wanting
biting
to
into keep biting at the apple, right?
Right. And
The
so
little dog nipping at their heels.
yep, every single time. And they knew we were coming. And one of the cool parts was
you're on the radar now. I know that.
Exactly right. One of the cool parts was he had an opportunity to patent his material. And he chose not to. Because he just said, if somebody else can build this better than us, that kudos to them. But we have the best product that can be built, and we're going to continue to improve that and make it our own. So it was just an interesting lesson in business too, where it's like you can secure that one patented product, right? Or you can say, hey, go try to do it. Go try to do it yourself. Yeah, right. It's like. People know Under Armour for that material, right? And now everybody knows Nike for their dry fit stuff now. But before that, it was all cool gear and heat gear.
Yep.
So what was the next step after leaving Under Armour?
Yeah, next step after Under Armour, I actually took a complete 180 and I went to go run the development and fundraising for a private high school. So I got a call from the president at the high school that I went to here in Omaha. It's called Creighton Prep. And he just said, hey, I want you to come work for us. This was not even on my radar. Didn't even think about it. Like, I was drinking the Kool-Aid in Baltimore. And I just said, well, this is a pretty cool opportunity. Like move back home, be closer to my family, and just meet a ton of amazing people in the place that I grew up. And so ended up taking that job to lead the fundraising and spearheaded about a 31 or $32 million capital campaign in my second year. And it was just a remarkable experience, just like getting to know all of the movers and shakers that were here in town. And I have to say, like a lot of our success at Pando can be attributed to that, right? Where it's just like now, I don't have to have fear of reaching out to people because I know, a large majority of them.
Got their cell phone number in your pocket.
Yep, exactly, right? And I've known them for a long time. So I've already kind of built that relationship that's more on, us as individuals than just the product or services that we sell at Pando. So I did that for about 4 years. Really enjoyed it. And then just kind of got a little tired of the nonprofit pace. Like it just moves so slowly, right? And it was just like, after we raised that 32 million in my second year, right? It was just like, well, I wanted to keep going. Like I wanted to couple that, right? And keep building. And so that wasn't the case. And so I just decided it was kind of time for a change, which is kind of how I landed in the PEO space and in the small and medium-sized business world. So ended up going to go work for a regional PEO that was here in Omaha and running the sales side. And I really, really liked it. It had the kind of go, eat what you kill mentality of the business aspect. But it also had that you still get to know people because it is, a lot of family run businesses. It's a lot of people that, have 25 to 50 to 70 employees. And have a really good relationship with their employees. And so I really enjoyed that space. My dad started his own business in 2000. So he's been running his own company for 24 years. And so I remember him like Thursday night at midnight, like cutting checks and like running payroll and like trying to get guys paid on time, like doing this. And so it just like kind of all clicked for me when I started doing that and built up that business from about like 120, 130 clients to about 250 in 24 months. So I knew I was pretty good at it and obviously had a lot of connections in the right places. And then had an opportunity to buy that business And it, without getting into too much detail, that fell through about 10 days before it was supposed to happen. And so decided that maybe it was time to go out on my own with my business partner and start Pando.
So, and obviously filter through whatever you're unable to share, but if you're able to at least cryptically give insight on, because there's different ways to own a business, right? You start one and you buy one.
Mm-hmm.
And you were going down the path of buying one. What are some of the red flags or due diligence that people should be doing as they're analyzing if that deal is appropriate or not based on what you learned through the process of due diligence?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with what you do, David, right? I mean, we went through the succession planning and exit strategy. We did that for almost a little bit over a year, right? And at that time, it was all, rainbows and butterflies. And you're just thinking, okay, well, here's the number that I need to come up with and understand. I think one of the missing pieces, that ultimately ended up happening to us was just like, you don't expect that there's going to be other buyers, right? And I think it kind of let my guard down in just thinking like, oh, well, this family they picked me, right? They chose
that.
me.
I was just gonna say that, or the thought process of, yeah, there's other buyers, but there's a loyalty there to me because
Absolutely.
I put a shitload of work into growing this business to where it is now. And I see it all the time. Money talks, bullshit walks, right? Mm-hmm. So when the bigger check comes in the door, sorry, Taylor, it was great, but we're going to take the check, right? And that sucks. That's a huge kick in the nuts, right? Especially 10 days out.
Is. Yeah, it definitely is. And, I think one of the things that I definitely learned, after the fact is, that the seller was always out in the market looking for other opportunities, and really just using our offer to leverage it to go out and find more. And I think that was probably the hardest part was just like, hey, you trusted me, you had me all in, like I gave everything that I could to your business. With you promised me at the end that it was going to be mine. And so I think from an emotional standpoint, like, it took me a while. Like my tail was between my legs. Like I was walking with my head down. Like, I went from, potentially owning a business to 10 days later, having to make a
being unemployed.
Well, I stayed employed for a little bit. Thank the Lord. But it was just something that was like, what do you do now? Right? Like you start.
Yeah, because you're not going to stay there.
No,
right? Like,
and you just envision like all of what's going to happen, right? And literally overnight, that completely changes. It flips on its axis, and you just don't know where to go. You don't know how to think. You don't know what you should be doing. And then you're told that you need to go sell something else, and you're just like, well, no, like this is not what I signed up for. So I just think that was probably the biggest lesson. Just an overall like sense of, like you said, Landon, like sense of loyalty, right? You feel really invested in that company, and you want to be a part of it, and you want to make it grow and continue that. But you also have to realize that these people have been doing this for 20, 30, 40 years, and they want what they feel like they're rightfully owed. And so, it was just, I think it was unfortunate if we kind of tie it into, what David does is like making sure that your leadership team is all a part of that decision. Because there's just no way that business is going to sustain, if those key people aren't in place and they're not on board and they don't feel like they have some sort of loyalty to the next group or they're part of the next group. And so just making sure that the synergy is there, and the communication is over communicated, on what the actual plan is supposed to be.
I'm glad you alluded to you didn't use these words, but basically the wind being taken out of your sails when that happened, because that's a natural reaction, frankly. I'm curious to know, this is a two-part question, and I don't know if you remember this vividly or not, but how long were you like in a funk for when that happened? And then what was the turning point of like, you know what, screw it, I'm just doing this on my own? Like how long were you in a funk, and do you remember that tipping point?
Yeah, I think to answer your first question, it will probably say like 4 to 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, like the first half of 2022. Like I was
Oh, so
just,
this was recently ish.
yeah. Oh
Oh
yeah.
yeah.
This was,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, damn.
This was December of 2021, when
Yep.
this all went down. And so 4 or 5 months while I worked for the group that ended up purchasing the old company that I was at. Yeah, it was, I mean, I didn't want to pick up the phone. I didn't want to get out of bed. Like
I
I
wouldn't want to
felt
do shit for those assholes. I don't know how you stayed employed. I'd have walked in and gave the bird and to give the guy a piece of my mind if thought I was buying it, and then all of a sudden I got to work for this asshole. No way, it doesn't work that way.
well,
You're a different breed than
yeah,
I am, though. So good
and
on you for doing
yeah.
that. But
Well, my wife and I found out that we were pregnant in
ah,
February. In
there's
February,
that.
yeah.
There is that.
So
Yeah.
that was part of it. Was just like, well, I have to certainly need an income to
Yeah.
to support my family. So, for as far as like that inflection point goes, I think it just was built up over time, right? Where it was me, 90% of the time feeling bad for myself, feeling sorry, and the other 10% of like, do you have enough courage to just, walk in, say you're done, and like now you're gonna go figure out what's next, right? Yeah, quite frankly, like I interviewed for other sales leadership positions in different companies, and I just heard the same story every single time, right? And it was just like, well, you come in for 2 or 3 years and you do a great job, and then equity is yours, right? Or we'll give you a little bit up front, and then we'll have the opportunity to purchase more, down the road. And I was like, guys, I appreciate you, offering that up, but like this is exactly what I was just told, right? So you're putting me on the same timeline, but now I'm, 3 years older, and so I think after having a couple of those conversations, I really just said like, this is the only option. Like this is it. Like
See, if I want
if
to do
you,
it my way, I got to
yeah,
do it my way. Right.
exactly. Yeah. So, I do have to say, like, I was very fortunate to have my now business partner who was also in the same position, right? Like her and I were going to be taking over our old company together. So her and I were, every single day, we're just like, it might have been a crying day, right? Or it might have been
Yeah.
an FU day, right? Or you're super angry. So it was awesome to have that sounding board, and that person to actually be there to support you. We got together towards the end of May, and we met with 4 different law firms, and we just said, what can we do? Like, what are our options? And yeah, there's no non-competes or non-solicits that existed, and they basically said, to be safe, like July 1st, you can go wherever you want to, whenever, and do what you want. And so, once we heard that from all 4 of them, we basically said, it's time to start putting a plan together, to build this in July.
And now the old firm became the Nike for Under Armour, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right.
No
Yeah.
better vengeance than putting them out of business.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
How'd you
Love
come
it.
up? How'd you come up with the name?
Yeah, this is badass. We need to get into this.
So we have a couple. We have 30% of our business is in Colorado, and so we were flying, going out there for years and years, and we had been researching like, okay, what are good PEO names? Like, what should we start with? And it was like, you go look at ADP or Paychex or Paylocity or, all of these different names. And you're like, these kind of suck. Like,
Yep.
there's
Agreed.
no, right? It's like automatic payments, like payusnow.com, right? And you're just like, no, like that sounds terrible. So our first attempt was to come up with a like acronym for the letters in Amy's and I's name. And that was terrible. And I was just doing some research on it and I found this word Pando and I was like, huh, this is really interesting. Like, what does it mean? Like, like, could it be a cool story? And so Pando is the world's largest living organism. So it's a grove of aspen trees that spans for thousands and thousands of acres just on the west side of the Rocky Mountains. A lot of it's in Utah. And they basically are individual specific trees that are on the surface that are all interconnected by one root system that's underground. And it just kind of light bulb moment was like, this is exactly what we do. Like we are the
PEO.
This is a PEO. Like we are the infrastructure, system, tools, process that live behind the scenes underneath the ground, right? That allow all of our individual clients on the surface to grow while we're all interconnected, allowing us to provide, 401k benefits, comp, like payroll.
Because let's be honest, everything you do, and every business owner listening to this is going to shake their head. Everything you guys do is the shit that we hate most as business owners.
Yes.
HR, right?
Yes.
Benefits.
Yes.
I mean, just everything, payroll, everything you guys do is the shit that we hate. So
that's why I started.
There's a great market for it.
That's why I started a business for something that I also hate, but that's why I have a business for it. So no, came up with Pando, and we knew that was the name. And then it was like, well, how do we brand this? Like, what does this look like? So we ended up hiring a software development company to help us with our technology side. And they had one person on their team that specializes in branding. And so we met up in Denver in like late August of 2022. And he came with like a whole full storyboard of like, here's the color scheme, here's what it means, here's what you told us. And we were like, this is terrible. Like, go back to the drawing board. Like, this looks like
you smoked the wrong green, bro.
Like,
you need to
it looks
start
like
over.
every other PEO, right? Like it was the people at the desk, like over the computer, and like the blue and the like all the orange, and we were like, no, like that's not it. And we came back 2 weeks later, and it was perfect. Like it was like, this is it, right? And it was the tree, like the leaf as our logo with the root system that's connected inside of the leaf with like the greens and the golds. And it was like, this is exactly what we were talking about. So, that's inception story, really.
What does it look like now? So you started off with you and Amy, and then 0 clients, and you started this halfway through 2022. So you're almost at your 2-year mark.
Yep.
Give us a sense of your growth. Like how many? I got a 3-part question. If you can track with me, they're pretty easy. They're pretty easy though.
Okay, I'll write them down.
Okay. And just ballpark, but like how many businesses do you support that have a total of how many employees? Mm-hmm. And what's the size of your team now?
Yeah. So we started July 12th, 2022 with 2 laptops, no money, no employees, no software product, and no clients. And by the time we got to
nothing but upside,
what could go wrong? And
and your wife was almost ready to pop at this point.
Yeah,
she's 6 months pregnant.
Go get it, honey.
And put up a job. We're done, and we're doing this thing. And we grew to. We had 8 internal team members and 54 clients, and we raised $2.5 million before January 1st of 2023. And we basically, like that first week, we turned the lights on, and just like we're up for 24 hours every single day, like making sure the system worked and our team did implementation right. Benefits were in place, all of this. And yeah, we successfully did benefits, comp, 401k for 54 clients those first 2 weeks of January. So we did all of that in, less than 6 months. It's since then, right now, we just got some updated numbers after April. We're at 185 clients that service about 3,500 employees across 38 different states. And we've got 22 internal employees, and we're about to hire our 23rd.
Nice.
Well, golf clap.
Badass. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Rocket fuel.
I'm curious, because you kind of alluded to this. I'm wondering how much crossover or cross-pollination, whatever you want to call it, there's been. So you were raising money for your former high school.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned that you had you made a lot of really good connections, from that job. Because obviously people donating money to a high school, they have dough.
Yep.
And I don't know if you know this number off the top of your head. Maybe it's zero, maybe it's all of it, but like, what percentage of the $2.5 million did you happen to raise from previous connections that you came across in that particular job? Just out of curiosity, if there's a connection.
Absolutely, yeah. So the previous connection that we had, that I had at Creighton Prep was somebody who actually never donated to Prep. So they said no every single time I knocked on the door, but I was
Catholic. Believe in capitalism, but
I was persistent, and I went to probably 4 or 5 different people first that had said yes to me in the past. And pitched Pando, and I put together a 120-page business plan, 10 years of pro forma data, my pitch deck, and started getting reps at that. The first 4 groups that we went to, they all wanted too much ownership. They all wanted control. They all wanted more than 50% of our business. So we had to walk away from those. I ended up going back to this group that had said no to me multiple times in my past life. And they happen to be a personal holding company for a family that has about $8 billion in family assets. And sat down, and we were in their boardroom for about 2.5 hours. And I laid down every inch of what our business was building, right? I mean, at this point, right, like, we didn't have it, like, it wasn't ready. Like, the product was not built yet. Like, our team was.
This is the trust me speech.
Yes, exactly right.
Trust me, it's gonna be awesome.
Trust me, it's gonna be amazing. I know that it is.
I'm gonna make you a shitload of money.
I'm gonna make you so much money. You're gonna be thanking me later that I came to you first. And we just got really fortunate. The business model worked out for their business. And we were able to come to an agreement where we all, between myself, Amy, and our equity partner, we're all able to have 33% of the business together. And so we raised.
So did they come in on a family office level, or was it just like as an individual?
Family office. Yep. So
they're utilizing it as an asset in their portfolio.
Exactly right.
Yep. Makes sense.
Yep. So they've got 100, let's call it 100 investments on their personal or their private investment wing. They got a real estate wing, and then they've got a foundation on the nonprofit side. So I think a big reason that we have been successful is it established immediate credibility for us, right? To say, hey, there's a handful of people in Omaha that have a B behind their name, Warren being one of them, which you talked about at the top. But the other one, this family, holds an incredible amount of credibility and weight. And so when we're able to, say that, hey, these people trusted us, with their $2.5 million, you should be able to trust us with your 25 employees and making sure they get paid and, they get benefits and all of those things in place. So, yeah, no, I mean, October. We went through a due diligence process in August, September, and October. And we're sitting there waiting, like we know that we have our first portion of that secured. But as you guys probably know that law firms like to make money as well as a part of that. So we went through about a 2.5 month due diligence process with our law firm and theirs, and eventually got our first 1.25 of funding at the end of October.
Is that right around when your kid was born?
Yes, it was. It was. It was a week. It was
February
like
to October.
Week, yes, it was like the week after my daughter was born. And
yeah, how pumped was your wife?
Yeah,
she was pretty excited. I think our employees' families at the time were probably more excited because it meant that they got paid. So no, it's been such a fun journey, guys. But those first 6 months is like you're telling people like what is going to happen and what you're building every day, but it hasn't actually, there's no tangible product or service that they can,
which is cool, right? I mean, these people are, you're obviously taking, a flyer on them, believing that they'll make a great employee, but arguably in the beginning, they were taking a bigger flyer on you.
Yeah. Because
again, it was the trust me, right? And the fact that they did is pretty awesome. So I get that. And I've always thought that, it's a kind of a cool dynamic with owners, employees, they're trusting you just as much as you trust them,
exactly,
if not more.
Yep.
And everybody needs a good PEO to be able to get them paid. So,
Landon, I couldn't agree more.
What was that like? So I remember way back when I first got into consulting after being an advisor, and I had a similar-ish story as it relates to somehow networked myself into, because the consulting company that I started at that time was mainly geared towards financial advisors and financial planning firms. And at the time I had no clients, no revenue as a result of that. But I somehow networked myself to the Mass Mutual home office. And I networked myself into their training department that oversaw their 8,000 advisors in the training that they provide. And I pitched them on this idea of, and this was, yours sounds way more buttoned up than mine. But I pitched them on this idea of digitizing their training program and, this whole song and dance, right? Put together this proposal. And I had, my team on there where it's this is the videographer, this is the tech guy, this is this person, this is that person. And they were all just my buddies from college, where I was if I land this, we're working together. But it was a fake team that I put together, right? Mm-hmm. And so I put it together and I priced it out at $1,055,000 to build this out for them. And I was talking with my dad. He's like, "What's the 55,000 for?" And I'm like, "Well, Dad, it can't be an even million. Come on." as if that's a smart thing for me to respond with, right? I had no idea what I was doing, right? And what was interesting is that they loved it. They loved it. And then the head person of that training program went to a different department, and then it just kind of floundered from there. But looking back, and this has a question involved too, but looking back, I think I was just so naive at the time, and I had this big vision and these big goals where I was screw it. Yeah, I'll go pitch these people with nothing to back it up and then just figure it out. I had a saying, FIFO, and it's not what you're thinking in terms of accounting. It stands for figure it the fuck out, where you just say yes and you figure it out. So all that to ask, when you were going and pitching folks without really anything to show them except for, quite frankly, made up revenue projections in the pro forma that anyone could put on an Excel spreadsheet, right? What gave you the courage and the audacity and the belief in yourself to go and do that when you didn't have anything to back it up, similar to me not having anything to back it up?
Yeah. I think a lot of it had to do with I didn't have another choice, right? Like
Burn the boats.
I didn't have another choice not to talk to them and believe in myself enough and show them confidence that it was created and it was happening. And I also like I didn't have another choice to not build what I told them we were building. And quite frankly, like, we're still building it, right? Like we're still
Always will
improving
be.
it. Exactly right. But to know like when you have that deadline, like you're not going to stop until it actually happens, right? And yeah, I think there's a couple pretty good examples of like what you see when like you tell hundreds and thousands of people like, hey, this is happening, and it doesn't. And I'm not okay living my life that way. And so, yeah, I think for me, it was the idea that like I truly there was no other option. Like this was going to happen, and in my mind, you have to tell yourself that. Like you have to tell yourself every day, like we are going to get a step closer. We are going to figure this out. It's not going to be perfect, but we're going to keep moving. So we have a product to deliver on January 1st. And that was that was it, right?
I think if you can get into your mindset in that space too, correct me if I'm wrong, Taylor, but I mean, at least for myself, if I have that much conviction and belief in something, even though it's not real yet, it's as if it is real, right? Like everything I'm doing is to like when I get laser focused and I put something out there that I'm going to do it, they're like you said, burn the boats. There's no turning back. Like we're gonna go fight this fight, and we're either gonna die doing it or we're gonna succeed, right? And
absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's a great example. It's like, hey, you got to believe in yourself enough to make what is like a concept into reality, right? And I mean, I remember the first 2 weeks of January 2023, like our entire team, which was 8 people at the time, like we were on Zoom calls at our house at 11 o'clock, at midnight, at 1 a.m. Like we were doing that, right? To make sure that like what we said was going to happen the next day was actually going to happen. Like, I mean, you can't build something in 6 months and think that there's not going to be any issues that happen with it.
And the issues would cause, frankly, people not to get paid.
Yes.
And it's not like I mean, some companies are like this too, but like a lot of individuals, like they need that money on the day that they expect. They don't have that buffer. So
yes,
there was a lot of pressure.
You're talking health insurance, you're talking payroll, shit that people kind of depend on, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, we had to find like 300 people health insurance in the last 10 days of December because the carrier that we had lined up in Colorado backed out last minute. And right, so it was just like we were scrambling for 20 of our 54 clients, and we had to figure it out in 10 days. And you just do it like there was no other option. Like kind of goes back to my story in college where it was just like, you can put all of your eggs in one basket and people will tell you like, oh, that's a terrible idea. But like when your back is against the wall because you've done that, like there's no stopping what you're capable of doing.
FIFO.
Yeah, you FIFO. Exactly. Right. Like you backed up against the ropes. Like I'm sorry, but it's me or you. And I'm going to win. So
and to be clear, you said 54 clients, and the client is defined by a business, and then there's employees underneath that. So in 6 months, under 6 months, because you started on July 12th, I believe you said, like Landon and I, when we were advisors in a more churn and burn capacity, right?
Transactional setting.
Yeah, transactional side. Like we'd be bringing on 50, 60 clients in a year. with the backing of a notable brand that's been around since 1857.
Yeah.
You're bringing on 54 businesses in less than 6 months with no proven track record at all.
With an IOU, basically.
Trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. So my question is, like, was that all networking and through relationships you acquired them? Was there a particular marketing plan? Did you leverage LinkedIn? Like, did you go to networking event? Like, where did you find those 54 people?
I'd rewind it a little bit though. I mean, the guy doubled their sales side of things in I don't know, it was a year or 2 years since your previous. Yeah. You had proven to yourself that you could do this, and the fact you had a non-compete. I got to imagine in a sales role, like even in the advisory role, like I like to think that my clients work with me because of me and our relationship. And I know you, Taylor, and I've got to feel like I know why I would work with you is because I think you're a kick-ass dude. Like, right? Like somebody over here could have a better product even, and I'd be like, yeah, you're a dork. I like this guy, right? Yeah. Like, I'll go with it.
Yeah, no, I mean, out of those 54 clients, I mean, only a handful of those came from our previous employer, right? And so one of our core values is do the right thing. And so from the very beginning, Amy and I said, we're not calling any of these people. We're not emailing them. We're not telling them that we're open for business. We're not doing any of that. If they call us, that's a different story. Right. And so I'd say probably like 15 of those clients like actually became clients on January 1st. Now, since then, a lot more have called and we have answered. And I'd say probably a nice makeup. I'd probably say 60-ish clients are from our old company. And we still thank you.
As of last month? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, and it's just been a nice trickle effect, but it's not a sales cycle. It's not a sales tactic for us to just go pound on all of our old clients. Like, they know who we are. If they want to call, they can call us.
That had to be hard though, right? Like, you're the one that went out and acquired this relationship. I feel like you would have been completely entitled to the fact of like, hey, here's what went down, right? I got backdoored. Thought I was going to be able to maintain my working relationship with you here. That didn't happen. We're here now. I understand we're new. If you want to take a chance, like that's how I'd approach this. So good on you guys for not doing that, I guess. But I think you would have been completely appropriate for you to do that.
No, absolutely. And I think it kind of correlates back to the Kevin Blank piece, right? Where we were talking about like he didn't go out and seek patents for his moisture wicking technology. He was like, listen, if somebody else is going to build something better than I am, I don't think that's possible. And that's the competitor in me. It was like, we'd absolutely love to have all of our old clients back. That would be awesome. But at the same time, it's like, I know that we're building something that's a superior product and a superior service to a large majority of our industry. And so like right now, a lot of our momentum has come from those new clients being so happy with what we're providing that they're now referring clients, right, their friends, their business owners to us. And that's been a huge revenue generator.
And it's the biggest compliment you can get.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
Like, I love,
you're doing your job.
That's the biggest compliment you can get as a business owner, in my opinion.
Exactly right.
This is awesome. What are you building? Like, what's the vision? I mean, you're not even 2 years in, you're literally in your own discipline, providing food on the table for 3,500 people, right? Through your organization. What are you building this to?
That's a great question, Dave.
Put it out there so we can hold your ass accountable.
Yep.
Our goal would be built this was to have 100,000 worksite employees. So we're 3.5% of the way there. I tell myself I have 23 and a half really good years left. The first year and a half were spent getting this up and running. But I think what we're trying to create is, it's kind of cheesy, but just bear with me. It's is kind of the Pando, like the structure of what the actual Pando is the interconnectedness. And so you see a lot of these large companies in our industry. They basically ship out all of their service team. You get a 1-800 number, you get an AI chat bot, you get these items, which are all great technology tools that we'll utilize to a certain extent. But where you get down to it, like when it comes to my paycheck, or I'm at the doctor's office and they're saying my health insurance is declined, like you need somebody that knows who you are and your account and what's important to you, and needs somebody that's going to respond with the same sense of urgency that you have in that moment. And so what we're looking at now is actually we are about to unlock the $28 million of funding for further expansion from the same equity partner that gave us the first $2.5 million. So with that, we are starting to look at branching out into acquisition targets and building organically in different markets. So we call it the Pando pods. So we're going to build kind of subsidiaries to the Pando holding company in different regions. So we're exploring Lincoln, Des Moines, Denver, Minneapolis or Twin Cities, and Kansas City right now. And have already started a lot of those preliminary conversations and trying to find the right people to actually run those organizations, whether they exist today or they'll be built under the same method we built the one in Omaha.
Love it.
Well, it's cool to see, I guess I can say only when you compare it to 28 million, but when that family office invests only 2.5 million and they see
it's not that big a number when you got 8 billion. I mean, come on.
But they see what
pocket change.
What you and Amy have been able to do with it, and they're like, here, take, whatever that is. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was it. I mean, they know that this is like, they wanted to see proof of concept from the beginning. And now that we've done that in an 18-month time period, they want to say, okay, well, what's stopping us from building this out in other markets, right? So instead of, having to have, 5,000 clients, all across, it's like we could go get and corner each market individually and have 1,000 clients in each city or each region that we're in. So my hope is that we can really stay focused around like Midwest companies, solely because there's not a huge PEO presence in the Midwest. I mean, you go out to the East Coast, you go out to the West Coast, you go down to Florida, every company that has one employee is using a PEO. Every single one. But you go across the Midwest, you got, guys that are still hand signing checks and, meeting with their benefits broker on a month-to-month basis because they want to know, what their claims history was for the last month. Like that's just how we see we see how people act and run their companies here. And so we want to try to like emulate that and kind of run parallel to what they have so that they don't feel like they're, giving up a large portion of their business when they become a client.
I actually have a couple of people for you. So after this reminder, got you.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Love that. It's also cool too, how you're in sort of like I
just got an email from Pando. That's hilarious. No bullshit. Did you send that story while we're doing this? I just got an email from Pando.
It says, Landon, please do not forget the referrals that you were just saying.
That's funny. But you're in like a one-to-many business in that you focus on growing through acquiring the business owner clients, but then from there, and you can probably help with this too in creating additional value-added, content and resources to further increase your value proposition that results in the business growing themselves. So you acquire that client, and in theory, it's the gift that keeps on giving. So I picture from where you are now at 3.5% of your goal of 100,000 being truly a hockey stick sort of growth rate, because there's going to be a handful of these companies that pop.
No, that's exactly right. Yeah, we're actually we're part of an organization out in Denver. It's called True Space, and it's a gentleman who's sold multiple businesses for hundreds of millions of dollars. And one of the things that he wanted to learn was just like, hey, well, how do we help other entrepreneurs like build what I've created, multiple times? So they did a 5-year study with Gallup. They took 1,500 small to medium-sized businesses. So these are groups that are doing at least $5 million in top-line revenue. And they said, what makes them successful? And they worked all the way backwards and selected 40 of them and did a study with those 40 for 2 years on what it looks like to create the science of predictable growth.
And it all came down to they used Pando PEO. That was
there's the punchline right there.
Sorry to interject, but I had to
no,
make a joke.
But it's just like it's like creating the lifeblood and the life cycle of the business, right? And like which pieces do you need to actually exist in order for you to predict where your company is going? And so we've modeled our business off of that program specifically to help us really grow in a predictable way. Right. So like I know year over year, like we're going to double in size. Right. And a lot of people would say, well, that seems crazy. Right. Like you're 100% growth, but like we have the infrastructure for all of that. We have all of the metrics in place to know exactly when we need somebody internally to help service those clients and the client's employees. Right. So I know what my sales forecast is. So it's predicting exactly what I need for the infrastructure internally for that. All that being said, like we have a platform and a system that could literally hold 100 million employees if we wanted to, right? Like there's no limit to the total number of people that we can process payroll for and run benefits for. And so I think what I'm trying to say is like we know that like we're going to get to 100,000 and we've worked all the way backwards from that.
Well, it's cool to have like when you know your KPIs, your conversion rates, like you create that predictability. You're able to hire ahead, as you alluded to. You're able to like make data-driven decisions so that you can honestly come full circle to Under Armour. Like they hit a snag when they couldn't fulfill on that. And perhaps either knowingly or unknowingly, you took that lesson that you could see and be like, okay, well, how do we make sure that we're not in that predicament where we grow too fast?
Yes. Yeah, exactly right. I mean, everyone loves the hyper growth story, right? Like everybody is like, oh my gosh, they're taking over the world. But then when you peel back the onion, you realize like they have not done any of the right steps to actually provide what they're saying they're providing.
Or it's a Sam Bankman-Fried organization.
Yep, exactly right. So, I mean, our idea is like, yeah, we could go out and we could open up Lincoln, Kansas City, Denver, Chicago, Twin Cities, tomorrow if we wanted to. But that being said, it's like, why would we do that when we know the model that's predictable and is going to get us year over year returns, right? I mean, I think a lot of people would say I'd be happy, like doubling the size of my business or growing at 50% when I know that that's going to happen, right? And I can actively prepare for that. And like I said, I've got 23 and a half really good years left. And so it's mapping out to we can hit that goal, right? When I said that here's the timeline for that.
I love it. Well, Taylor, one of the things that we usually end with and start to wrap up with, and you're throwing me a curveball, so you gotta sell me on this. But one of the things we ask all our guests is a book that's had an impact on them, and up to this point, I'm pretty sure everyone has shared a personal development / business oriented book. And part of the reason why we do this is for the folks listening, it's, they listen to podcasts, they consume all different types of content to help them in their entrepreneurial journey. And why not ask all of our guests about a book that's had an impact so that they can, filter through the noise and get a recommendation. But you're throwing me a curveball and you picked a fiction book. I'm not a big fiction fan, but it's called The Ender's Game. So I'm curious to hear about the impact that you can tie into business, or at least sell me on picking up a fiction book, because it's not really my forte.
Watch a sci-fi movie every once in a while. Would you?
I hate sci-fi movies, so this is going to make it even harder for Taylor.
No, so I wanted to throw you a curveball. So when you asked that question earlier, I had to give you something to think about, right? And at least pique your interest in understanding about it. But no, Ender's Game, it's a book I try to read, if not every year, every other year, because I know myself and I know I don't like to read for fun. Right. So I very much like your audience, and very much like you too. Like, I read to learn, to grow, to develop. And so a lot of that is centered around business, entrepreneurship, and leadership. But this book is something that's been stuck with me since the first time I read it in high school. And it's a really cool spin on kind of like war history and war strategy, right? Like, if you think about it in that context of like, okay, how do we eventually grow and run a team? How do we go through all the ebbs and flows, all the ups and downs of the changes that are going to happen from season to season? And how do you get everybody to work together towards a common goal? So it's really a story of kind of the underdog who comes in and has to figure out a way to fit into all of these different situations, right? And navigate it to ultimately run his platoon or his squadron, or, whatever position he's in. And it's just it's a wild context, because he's 9 years old, right, when they're talking about what he's doing. And so you're just like going back and forth into like what's reality and what is not. But the message inside of that resonated with me, because it's the art of building business, right? Like, we've gone from Amy and I being, in the same room with laptops to, having 22, 23 employees that service 3,500 employees. And so every different stage of our business is different. And I have to figure out, as a leader, as an entrepreneur, how am I going to navigate this situation? Because it's always constantly changing. So
boom, there it is, David, right there.
Go pick it
up. A damn fiction book.
It is. I'm a little sold. Does it have an audio version?
Did you ever read Hatchet in high school? Get out of the box.
Yo, I didn't read in high school or college.
Makes sense.
I've read or listened to all the fuck you. I've read or listened to all these books behind me, but like, I fell in love with reading, honestly, back when I was 26, 27. But before that, like, I'd find someone who I knew was a bookworm before class and be like, yo, tell me what it's about real quick. They'd tell me, and then the teacher would be like, so what were your thoughts on the book? I'd raise my hand first, so no one took the point that I wanted to make, because that's the only point that I knew, and then I'd be good for the rest of class. So
what David does is he actually listens to the book on audio, and then he just buys it to put on his bookshelf behind him, Taylor. So what he's still saying is he still can't read. But he's really good at paint by number.
Well, I won't throw you under the bus, Landon. You already know what I want to say.
He's taking the high road.
Yeah, I know.
I know how to read 10 pages. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah. I failed my 75 hard because I got 3 pages in, and then, we'll just leave it. The activity came up, and I never got back to it. And the next morning I realized, damn it, I dropped the ball. So I had to call David and tell him that 7 pages cost me the 75 hard program, but we're gonna write it out.
There we go.
Finish it as we go. But I was pissed at myself. Let's put it that way.
So,
well, we bust balls back and forth, all in good fun.
That's right.
Exactly right.
And I think too that there's a lesson in that in and of itself. Like, you're the only one that knew that happened where you didn't read the other 7 pages. And I was literally your first fucking call that morning being like, yo, guess what? So I think it goes to show the level of integrity and honesty that people have, is whether they tell the truth about something that happened when no one else was looking. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, it wasn't a fun one to make. I was like, damn it. Like, I hate, like I said, if you can't be accountable to yourself, how are you going to be accountable to anybody else? So that shit bugs me. But it was an honest mistake. It was activities with my bride. What am I supposed to do, man? Like, she's beautiful.
The listeners can read between the lines.
Yeah. Got interrupted. But Stormy, seriously, congrats on all the success, and super excited to see what you do going forward, man. However we can be a part of that journey and help along the way, obviously, let us know. We're rooting for you, and we know you'll do big things.
Awesome. Really appreciate you guys having me today. Thank you very much. And if I can assist you or any of your listeners in any way, please let me know.
Oh, we appreciate it. And for everyone listening, if you own a business and it's more than just you being a solopreneur, but you actually have an employee or 2 or 3 or 25 or 50, definitely reach out to Taylor. All his information will be in the show notes, but just pandopeo.com. And we appreciate you tuning in. If you haven't yet, and you would be so kind as to leave us a review, we'd appreciate that as well. And Taylor, I'm sure we'll be chatting soon, but appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Stormy.
Peace.
Whoa. Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believed me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say. I got them picking up the pieces.